Since launching with Iron Man in 2008, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has expanded in ways most fans could never have imagined. And as the MCU has grown, so too has its impact outside of that shared world. Characters like Ant-Man, Spider-Man, Thor, Captain Marvel, and even the Guardians of the Galaxy have made their respective presences felt elsewhere, with the actors who play them having a great time staying in character in different surroundings. Honestly, it's just a shame that some of these moments were never given the opportunity to play out on the big screen. With that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are 10 MCU actors who appeared in character outside the movies. 10. Ant-Man steals the Hulk's drink. Back in 2016, fans received an unexpected surprise during the Super Bowl in the form of a Marvel-themed cola commercial. Some serious money was spent on this one, as a fully CGI Ant-Man, voiced by Paul Rudd, is shown stealing a mini Coke from Bruce Banner's lab before being pursued by the Hulk. Unfortunately, Mark Ruffalo was nowhere to be seen, but the Jade Giant looked great, and it was a blast watching these two causing chaos in the Big Apple. Now, this isn't canon because Ant-Man and the Hulk had never met at this point and the Hulk would have been on Sakaar, but it's one heck of a team-up that has never really been explored fully in the MCU itself. The two heroes did cross paths at last in Endgame, but not for anything quite as wacky as this. 9. Peter Parker and Happy Hogan hang out. Iron Man was a big part of Spider-Man Homecoming, largely to drive up interest in the franchise again after The Amazing Spider-Man 2 bombed, as was his right-hand man, Happy Hogan. What nobody expected was his relationship with Peter Parker to become so endearing, and the start of that was arguably in this commercial for ABC's NBA Finals. The bulk of it revolves around Peter arriving at Avengers Tower and being tasked with running an errand by Happy. It's hard to say where this is supposed to fit in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's continuity, but that shouldn't detract from just how much fun it is to watch. 8. Team Thor. This short was filmed by Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi and is undeniably hilarious. Originally revealed during the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con, it picks up with the God of Thunder living in Australia with his dorky housemate Daryl. As Thor struggles to come to terms with being left out of the recent Civil War, there are plenty of gags on offer courtesy of Waititi's unique brand of humor. From Thor trying to pay his share of the rent with Asgardian money to an awkward meeting with Bruce Banner, this exists somewhere outside of the official MCU canon, but who cares when it's this undeniably hilarious. 7. Scott Lang's prison interview. This is very much set in continuity, but no one could blame you for completely missing it back in 2015. Released as part of a partnership between Marvel Studios and Google, this short sees Leslie Bibb reprise her role as Christine Everhart for an interview with Scott Lang. While this didn't make for a central viewing as such, it did cleverly shed some light on Scott Lang's motivations, explaining why he did what he did to land in prison. It also nicely set the stage for him becoming Ant-Man, and helped make it clear what a jerk Pym-Tech CEO Darren Cross really is. 6. Captain Marvel gets all caught up on the MCU. Carol Danvers was absent from Earth for a good 30 years or so by the time she returned in Avengers Infinity War, and things had changed a lot during that period. Nick Fury had risen up the ranks of S.H.I.E.L.D. to become director, and Earth's mightiest heroes had assembled to become the Avengers. In this commercial promoting regular Marvel Studios partner Audi, Captain Marvel is briefed by a mysterious organization about everything she's missed since 1995. As well as being given a rundown on superheroes, Carol is also brought up to speed on everything from Snapchat to iPhone. While it's highly unlikely that this actually took place between Infinity War and Endgame, it's never not amusing to see how Captain Marvel reacts not only to the existence of the Avengers, but also the fact that everyone takes photos of their food. We never got to see the hero introduce herself to the team, so this is as good as it's ever going to get in explaining how she got accustomed to 2019. 5. Rocket and the Guardians go for a ride. Unfortunately, a deal between Marvel and Universal means Marvel superheroes are unlikely to ever have a major presence in Disney World, but there are no such restrictions in place on the West Coast. The opening of Avengers Campus has been delayed thanks to current world events, but Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout definitely fills this void. A replacement for Tower of Terror, it follows Rocket attempting to break his fellow Guardians out of the Collector's Collection, with all of the Guardians reprising their big screen roles for an experience that was actually directed by James Gunn. There's no reason to believe this couldn't have happened prior to or shortly after the events of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but even if it's set in the Avengers Campus universe, it's one heck of an experience and a must for any Marvel fan. 4. Nick Fury shows up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was initially a huge hit for ABC, but the series struggled to find its footing during that first season, and viewership quickly dropped. As ratings reduced, so too did the number of tie-ins to the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the show benefited from that in many respects, and became its own satisfying spin-off. During those early years, characters like Maria Hill, Sif, and Peggy Carter all made cameo appearances, but by far the most memorable was Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. His first appearance came at the end of the second episode, but the most noteworthy was when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started tying into the events of Captain America the Winter Soldier. Handing the directorship of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Agent Coulson, this felt like a true changing of the guard, and it's frankly a shame the series was never really able to capitalize on that. 3. Loki invades Comic-Con. Thor: The Dark World was not a great movie, but the way Marvel Studios went about promoting it certainly was. Their Hall H presentations at the San Diego Comic-Con have always been incredible, but dimming the lights and kicking things off with a Loki voiceover sent fans into a frenzy, especially when the God of Mischief himself showed up on stage. Staying in character the entire time, Tom Hiddleston ordered the crowd to kneel before taunting those in the audience with an epic speech. It's a shame the sequel didn't live up to expectations, but this was a phenomenal stunt, and one that is unlikely to ever be forgotten by those in attendance. 2. Peter Parker gets his driving license. Another Audi tie-in, this was another Spider-Man Homecoming promotion, and it certainly did not disappoint when it came to delivering some big laughs. Featuring Peter Parker nervously taking his driver's test under the watchful eye of his examiner, this commercial actually introduced a new character to the MCU. Smoove made such an impact here that Marvel Studios would bring him back for Spider-Man Far From Home, as one of the chaperones who accompanied Peter and his classmates on their trip abroad. This was a spectacular tie-in and fits perfectly within the tone of the reboot. There are also some amazing nods to the wider MCU here, with a mention of Tony Stark and Spider-Man's theft of Flash Thompson's ride in Homecoming. 1. Yondu and the Ravagers take over Hall H. 2016's Marvel Studios panel in Hall H was another star-studded affair, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was a huge part of the event. Kevin Feige introduced James Gunn and the sequel's cast, but found himself overshadowed by the unexpected arrival of the Ravagers. They entered through the crowd and made a mess of the stage, while criticizing what they didn't like about the first Guardians movie. Eventually they left, but it was then that Michael Rooker showed up in full costume and makeup as the leader of the Ravagers, Yondu. He stuck around for the entire panel and was clearly having a tremendous amount of fun. This was definitely a gimmick and it didn't really have any major ramifications for the sequel, but it got fans talking, and that's what's most important after Comic-Con. Sadly, Yondu's time in the MCU would reach its end after Volume 2, making this surprise appearance all the more special for those lucky enough to be in Hall H that day. And there you have it folks, 10 MCU actors who appeared in character outside of the movies. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at @uslide_u. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.